Hi everyone, I'm Kat and I'm the Outreach Coordinator with Ontario Streams. Today I've got a very quick talk about effective small-scale stream rehabilitation. So Ontario Streams, we are an environmental charity based out of York Region, and we were established back in 1996. So we've got over 26 years of experience leading habitat enhancement efforts, specifically in aquatic systems. Our mission is to promote the protection and rehabilitation of Ontario streams, rivers, and wetlands through education and community action. So all that to say is we do a lot of on-the-ground work, usually with the help of lots of volunteers. Here is a map of all of the watersheds that we touched last year, whether that's through on-the-ground work, outreach programs, or research. So we've got quite a spread, not all of Ontario, but a good chunk of Ontario. We do work on the traditional territory of many First Nations, including the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, the Mississaugas of the Credit, and many, many more, of course. And here in the Greater Toronto Area, our focus is on the headwaters, which are, of course, the rivers and streams that are the farthest from the mouth. So here in the Greater Toronto Area, that is, of course, Lake Ontario. So we're generally working in the north end of the Greater Toronto Area. And as we improve our headwater habitats, we are also seeing improvements downstream in water quality as well. When we plan our projects, we have 3 targeted species in mind. The red-side dace, which are a minnow that have been considered endangered in this province since 2008. Atlantic salmon, which have been considered locally extinct here in Lake Ontario for over 100 years. And lastly, brook trout, which are not at risk, listed as at risk currently. However, they are a very sensitive cold water indicator species. So we want to make sure that they stay protected and don't end up listed anytime soon. So while we do work to improve habitat for these 3 species, any work that we do to improve habitats is going to be felt beyond these 3 and for any other living things in these ecosystems. Here at Ontario Streams, we have many different kinds of stewardship activities that lead to that aquatic habitat restoration and rehabilitation, including wetland creation and restoration, removing detrimental blockages, managing invasive species, planting native trees and shrubs, cleaning up garbage, and of course, this in-stream habitat enhancement, which is going to be our topic for this very speedy talk. I will touch on 2 different kinds of techniques that we use, and these efforts utilize soil bioengineering, which is a method for stabilizing and protecting eroded soils. Basically, these structures that we build, they are used to provide spots for in-stream sediments to settle and to help rebuild the banks to their natural grade. The work we do, it's unique because we are using plants and plant materials as the main structural components to help reinforce the soil and provide protection. Additionally, our structures, they provide food through the vegetation that grow on these structures, as well as the insects that are attracted to the vegetation on these structures. They provide cover for wildlife and act as a new part of this ecosystem. Each structure involves the use of natural materials, which we usually find on site at our project sites. And we avoid using any sort of machinery. Pretty much everything we do is done by hand, using hand tools too. So that kind of links it all back to this idea of small scale yet effective stream rehabilitation. The first structure I will discuss is a technique that we call brush bundling. And these are probably one of the least invasive methods of reducing erosion. On the left, we have our before picture. We see this steep grade. We are seeing exposed roots, lots of sediment missing that used to be there. And unfortunately, in our urban centers, after very large storm events, we've got so much water moving through our our natural waterways due to all of these impervious surfaces in our cities. The water has nowhere to go but through our sewer systems into our rivers, where it moves very quickly and ends up causing quite a bit of erosion. So what we do here is we come in and we put a bunch of woody material, generally trees such as Manitoba maple or buckthorn, both invasive species in this area. And we cut them down and we strategically place them along these eroding banks and then secure them with earth anchors, which are a little anchor with quite a long tail. And we end up attaching all those tails together to secure them in place. This material, we pack it densely enough to allow light to get through so future vegetation can reestablish. However, it's dense enough that the sediments do have places to settle within these structures. A structure like that would take basically about a day for our team to work on, being about 15-ish meters long. And I've got a video here of our team last year out at, I believe this is Rouge River, and we've got one team generally working on the bank. We can see the insertion rod going in with the earth anchor onto the top, where staff in the yellow hat, and then we've got the other team in the water putting another earth anchor in to secure all of this to the bank. Over time, these structures get more and more sediments deposited inside of them, and they grow stronger and more effective over time. These structures, again, they're created with plant materials, so it's really as natural as we can get. And over time, they collect enough sediments to end up regrading the bank without any additional intervention or soil disturbance. So we see just over a few years here, we've got on the left our before picture with this pretty steep grade. Then we put all our brush bundles in there, and then over time, our soil and sediments inside the river eventually resettle, and we've got natural vegetation just popping right back up. On the other hand, we have sweeps, and these are a simpler structure, and they act again a lot like our brush bundle by providing protection to an eroding bank, creating that space to settle, dense cover for fish and aquatic insects. These, though, we generally use donated live Christmas trees or cedar boughs to secure them in, and then secure them in place, again using our earth anchors. When we put these Christmas trees into the bank, we put them, the tips of them facing downstream, and this then reduces the pressure of the flowing water onto the structure. And again, allowing over time for sediments to accumulate and regrade the bank. Here's just another image here where we can see them nicely tucked in along this bank. And deciding on whether to use sweeps or brush bundling is going to be determined on a site-by-site basis and depends on the available resources, meaning what sort of trees you might have on site, if you've got lots of invasive trees or not. And that's generally how we decide, as well as how many Christmas trees we end up getting donated. So with sweeps, they really provide a smaller amount of protection to these vulnerable banks, and brush bundles in general provide a more robust protection and able to create more habitat space. Just a reminder here about a best practice is while we are doing this, we still want to reduce how much sediment we are putting into the water while we work, especially in red side dace habitat and red side dace contributing habitat. So here we have this very fancy sediment fence, and basically it is a very kind of like a filter. It's got a piece of fabric, and we put a chain along the bottom to weigh it down, and then pool noodles tucked underneath at the top so that the top floats. What we do when we're working is we would start on the bank, on the ground, and drag this into the water, making sure that we don't end up trapping any fish in our work location. As we work, we're able to stir up the water on the inside of the sediment fence, and the water outside stays as normal. And then at the end of the day, we let the sediment settle again, and then we remove our sediment fence. if you maybe have been a little bit inspired and you have some ideas of sites that need some stream rehabilitation, we've got some ideas here about project planning and the steps that you need to take. These are taken from the Ontario's Stream Rehabilitation Manual, available on Ontario Stream's website. So this is a big document that has lots and lots of information about how to plan and implement effective stream rehabilitation work. Of course, two big things to note would be to make sure that you have all appropriate permits and permissions to do this kind of work, especially in species at-risk habitat, as well as have really good communication with landowners. We do a lot of our work on public lands, but often with private owners as well. So that's a really key part of project planning. If you have any further information, or are looking for more information, feel free to reach out to Ontario Streams, and we're happy to provide support or advice on any sorts of stream rehabilitation projects. So thank you all for tuning in today for this very quick talk. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about our stream restoration work, I invite you to go look at our Toronto and Region Remedial Action Plan talk that we did just last week. That's available on the Toronto RAP website. And Don is going to follow up my chat here. And Don was also on that presentation last week. So if you have more questions about what Don is going to talk about, he also mentioned some of this work last week too. So thank you so much. And I hope to answer some questions a little bit later.